Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest, I am honored to have on this podcast, Greg Benson. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Adi, how are you today?
Doing great. And Greg, I'm so grateful that you agreed to be a guest on the podcast, and we're going to have a great interview about business, about processes,
Yes.
about entrepreneurship.
Yes.
But I'm going to introduce you first. So you're an EOS implementer, and with hundreds of sessions under your belt, you're a serial entrepreneur and you're a recovering CPA. So a serial entrepreneur, recovering CPA, and now EOS implementer, helping many, many businesses be successful. But you are, I know you, I got to know you very well, and I know that the most important thing for you is your family, and you've been married to your beautiful wife, Renee, for over 4 decades. Probably got married, both of them, especially Renee. She probably got married when she was very, very, very young.
She was naive, maybe as well.
But you together created this beautiful, raised this beautiful family. Yeah. And now you are proudly being called Puppy by 6 grandkids, which is tremendous achievement.
Yes, it is. I get in trouble with their parents, all sets of the parents, all the time because I play too rowdy. But that's just the way I like to engage. So let's have fun and let's get things done. And I carry over some of that into the sessions with clients. So
yes, and that's one thing, is that you are definitely guiding them in a firm hand, but with a lot of affection and care and friendliness. But you don't mess around, that's for sure.
Yes.
Good. So tell us about your journey, your serial entrepreneurship. I mean, first of all, it started with being a CPA, serial entrepreneurship, and then it ended with the EOS journey.
Yeah. So, I remember even going back to even in my early childhood, we would do fundraisers for my baseball team or this Boy Scouts team. And I was always the guy out there, peddling the chocolate candy bars, the world's finest chocolate candy bars. And we were selling donuts, to raise money for the team or whatever it was. And man, I just loved knocking on people's doors and going around and doing that. And then necessity kind of jumped in. And so Renee and I were married in 1983, and we were both working at the same time. I had my degree in accounting. I was working as a cost accountant, and it wasn't my favorite thing, but the things you do in early marriage. And Renee got pregnant, and we were expecting our first child, Josh. And then the light bulb went off. If Renee was going to be able to stay home with our kids like we wanted to do, I was going to have to do something different. So I actually went out on my lunch breaks and handed out business cards to the local small and medium-sized businesses to help them with their bookkeeping and their accounting, kind of moonlighting while I was doing my cost accounting. And so I believe in 85, when our son Josh was born, Renee left her job and never returned to the official work world, although she was in her own work world, raising 4 kids over a bunch of years. And so I started accumulating those clients and eventually built an accounting practice, and actually opened it in 96. Was it 96? Yeah, 96. Ran it till about 2007, when one of my clients said, "Hey, Greg, would you come in and help me tighten up the wheels on my business?" And man, I was excited because I didn't like sitting behind that desk looking at a a screen of 1040s and 1120s and 1120Ss and 941s and sales taxes and property taxes. I wanted to be on the field playing the game of business.
So you're telling us that you didn't like calling the IRS and dealing with it.
Ooh, well, and another part of me is I really felt bad when my clients were working really hard. And I was going to have to deliver bad news to them about the taxes that they had earned for working so hard. And that was, it was just personally challenging to me.
Sure.
And so, I mean, that was one aspect that, it didn't bring me joy, like you said, and doing the other stuff. And so I sold my accounting practice, went to work for this client that I'd had since 1985. And about 1986, I gave him his first tax return where he did $1.1 million. And by the way, in 1986, $1.1 million was still a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of money, but not as much as it was back then.
Well, it's probably similar to making 10 or more now.
Yes. Well, fast forward to this was 2006. He had grown to 11 million, and I had been part of that journey over that time. And so, man, I thought this was going to be my once in a lifetime opportunity. And so I sold my accounting practice and I went to work there. And 60 days after I got there, he unexpectedly passed away. I thought this was going to be the dynamic duo like Batman and Robin. And all of a sudden, it was the Lone Ranger. I was the Lone Ranger. Now, let's pause there for just a second because I want to fast forward to EOS. When we work with clients, we help them get better at 3 very specific things. And we call those things vision, traction, and healthy. What we mean by vision is getting everybody on the same page with where you're going, how you're going to get there. Pretty simple, huh? Traction is getting everybody focused, disciplined, and accountable and executing on that vision. Again, simple. And then finally, healthy, vision, traction, healthy is creating this open, honest, cohesive leadership team that actually likes working together. That's what I do now. But now let's to 2007. Later, I'm now the president of the company. Half the leadership team was trying to take the company. The other half was trying to go in the original direction. So we didn't have vision. We weren't in alignment. We weren't all going in the same direction.
Right.
Traction, being focused, disciplined, and accountable. Our bad system, massive amounts of product being returned. We were selling to Aldi's and companies like, sorry, there you go. With Aldi's and other companies, we were having returned products. So we weren't focused, we weren't disciplined, we weren't accountable, executing on that vision. And finally, we weren't healthy. The senior vice president of sales and marketing would walk out of his office, walk out into the 40,000 square foot production facility, start screaming at people on the line, kicking buckets. And when his blood pressure and tension had resided, he would go back into his office. What did he leave in the production area?
Right.
Chaos, confusion. And so over a period of about 18 to 24 months, I used all the tools that I had, which weren't very many, okay, to try and turn the company around. And I've got to tell you, Addie, I don't know if you've ever had a low point in your life, but that was a low point in mine. But because I knew the widow and loved her family, I just felt it was the best thing to do. So after about 1.5 years, 2 years, I brought in a turnaround specialist and exited stage right. But I'm specialist and I exited stage right. And Addie, that was one of the low points of my professional career. But it wasn't long after that until another one of my clients called me up on the phone. His name was Justin, and I'd helped Justin out of a pickle with the IRS when I had my accounting practice. One of the fun things I got to do with clients out like that, he said, "Hey, my boss is having problems with the IRS. Will you help him?" And I said, "Justin, no problem. I'll be glad to. Just give me my number or text me his number. I'll call him on Monday." Because this was on a Sunday in November. I wonder if Justin was calling me. He says, "No, Greg, you talk to him now." And he handed him his telephone. So I had a conversation. Well, it turned out he did have a problem. It was a 7-figure problem with the IRS. So I went into, yeah, that's the right reaction to have. I went into fractional CFO IRS crisis intervention mode. We stabilized the company. I helped refinance it. I actually went out and met the owner of the business. Over a period of about a year and a half, we reorganized, recapitalized the business. We bought the assets back from the IRS. I helped fund the operations. So I became a minority member and the CFO. And the CFO's job is to keep gas in the engine. That's one of the main jobs of the CFO, is to handle that part of the business, which was a challenge because the majority partner still had that 7-figure problem, but he was just operating under the watchful eyes of the IRS. And we kept them at bay, and we grew up from 12 million to 23.4 million from 2012 to 2025. I vested in my equity, took an early out, and go, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Well, my wife had some things that she says, you have 2 daughters and they're going to need weddings. So I suggest you find something to do. I began going on a journey. I didn't want to go back and, to become a CPA again. But I actually found this book called Rockefeller Habits by Vern Harnish. And I read it and I go, oh my goodness, this is good stuff. And so I'm on Amazon looking at something, and they saw where I had bought the book, Rockefeller Habits. And they said, people that bought this book also like this book. And it was some book named Traction. I'd never heard of it before. And I thought, I'm not going to read another book like this. But I dropped it on Audible because I was curious. Addie, I listened to it 3 times through going, oh my gosh, this is simple. This is powerful. I heard Jim Collins in there. I heard Stephen Covey in there. I heard Michael Gerber in there. I didn't even know who Patrick Lencioni was, but you hear Patrick Lencioni in there. And so that began my journey of finding out more about this book Traction and Gino Wickman, and it led me to EOS Worldwide. And I found that they had a tool, a system that you could share with people, become an implementer. And I kind of just hit myself in the forehead. I go, I wish I would have had this when I had my CPA practice. I'd still be using it in my CPA practice. I wish I'd have had it when I was working for my friend's company that passed away. It's possible. Now, that would have been a real test of EOS if we could have turned that one around. But at the construction company, the one we grew from 12 to $23.4 million in 4 years, no telling how much more we could have done. And so I went to Detroit, drank the purple Kool-Aid, became an EOS implementer in 2017, and have just continued on that journey since then. It's a great system. They're great people. That's where I am, and that's how I got to EOS.
That's incredible.
Yes.
And and our listeners, I know they know about EOS, the principles. I want to talk about you, Greg. What do you bring as an implementer from all of your experience, your expertise, helping clients also on the financial side, which is very important?
Yes.
What do you feel that you are bringing to your clients in terms of your expertise that makes this a whole package?
Yeah. So the value that an implementer brings and the value that I bring, because one of the things that we're challenged to do as an implementer is to enter the danger. We're in an all-day session with a client. We're talking about issues, and I look over and I see Addie wince, and I see James on another chair roll his eyes when Greg's talking, or when Bob's talking. And so my job is to say, Addie, just an interesting response there. Can you share with me what's behind that? Or over here, with Jim. Jim, man, you rolled your eyes when Bob was talking. That I don't understand what that would mean. Would you help me understand? And because our role now, going back out of role, our role as an implementer is to do 3 things. It's to teach EOS and to teach it purely, to facilitate the wisdom in the room, because we believe 90 to 95% of the answers that a business needs are found in that room. And finally, as a coach, to help those people work better together. And that's a weakness. If there is a weakness in self-implementing, it's difficult for whoever's leading the session, and if it's not who's leading the company, for the people to be participants, not leaders. There's a completely different skill set and mindset and engagement when you're a participant versus being the facilitator leading the meeting. There are many people who have self-implemented successfully, but they're having to overcome that, along with several other things as well. So it's bringing that authenticity into the meeting, being able to ask the hard questions, being able to expose, draw out real issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
And
imagine you've seen that before in some of your meetings with clients.
absolutely. Yes. And I wanted to say, you walk the walk, you don't just talk the talk. You help get a company. I mean, you had your own company.
Yes.
Then you help get a company by basically double within 2 years, I mean, 4 years, despite serious problems with the IRS. And we know that many companies that have to deal like that with the IRS can be such a burden where they don't want to do anything anymore. But instead, you actually build a company and got it to be successful. And you bring that with you, that value to your sessions with your clients.
Yes.
And another thing is that you really care about the clients. I can see that each client has become, you have your own personal interest in there in terms of making sure that they're successful.
Yes.
And the and the attitude of this tough love, right? In terms of saying it as it is. I mean, how important is that in business, right? I mean, sometimes you don't want an advisor that just tiptoes or goes around. You want somebody who is in there and actually telling you as it is.
That's so true. There's ancient wisdom that exists out there for us. One of my favorite ancient sayings is that faithful are the wounds of a friend, but deceitful are the kisses of an enemy. As an implementer and on a team, when it's needed, we need to deliver the hard truth. And sometimes it can be hurting, not hurtful, but it can hurt.
Yeah.
But we've got to speak that truth. We've got to speak it in love. Okay. We've got to think about the greater good. Okay. Because that's what the team is about. So yeah, absolutely.
That is very true. Very true. We are all about processes, and that's part of the EOS model, because we have 6 parts to EOS.
Yes.
And one of them is processes. So from your viewpoint, how important are processes for a business?
Addie, I think the first time we got to talk several months ago, we had a great conversation because I had shared with you, I came out of the kind of the quality control environment back in 1992. I learned a lot about Edward Deming, so I understood the work he did in Japan, kind of really the godfather of the quality movement in Japan. And he did so well. We see the impact of the seeds he planted back then. And so I knew that you might have a little bit of an issue with Wickman's philosophy. And we talked about that. And you said, if I recall correctly, he says, I don't know how you can say, Greg, document 20% of the steps and get 80% of the results. I don't know how you think that's success. And in words, you were very gracious about it. And I knew where you were coming from. And I appreciated that. But Wickman's philosophy, and it works so well for entrepreneurial companies, is, first of all, the most neglected component in entrepreneurial companies is process. His perspective was, let's get them started with 20% of the steps that give us 80% of the results. That's one of the components. Now, another component in that model, the EOS model, is the issues component. And in the issues component is when you have an issue, and an issue is a problem, obstacle, barrier, or even an opportunity, you address that issue. And so if we've only documented 20% of the steps that give us 80% of the results and we're having issues, what do? We go back in and address that issue.
Absolutely.
Because most entrepreneurial companies, my definition of most, that's fair, is that it works for them. Now,
And I agree 100% wholeheartedly. Depends on the type of the company and the
yes,
maturity of the company. Because I agree that what Gino did is brilliant in terms of you got to start somewhere. And it
yes,
becomes very overwhelming of where to start. So if at least you document
yes,
core processes that produce
yes,
80% of your results, you
yes.
are better off than not having it documented.
Now, one thing that when people understand the process component, not only do we document those core processes, we have what we call followed by all.
Right.
There are very 4 specific steps. We've got to train them and make sure they know how to do it the company way. Now, once they've been trained, then we measure for 3 very specific things: compliance, the right frequency, and the right results. Now, every process and for each function of the company will have different frequencies that are required and different results.
Right.
So we're measuring for that. Then we make sure that whoever's supervising them is leading them, managing them, and holding them accountable. Our acronym for that is LMA. We lead, manage, and hold people accountable to that core process. The final thing we do, and followed by all, is annually, whoever the owner of that function is or that process has to go back through and update it for any changes in technology, personnel, or whatever the case may be. So while it is not Kaizen and it's not black belt, okay, it is continuous improvement. Now, I was thinking, I knew you were going to ask me that question, Addie. So I came up with a little analogy. Now, I think I shared with you that my daughter-in-law is a nurse practitioner. My daughter was a nurse at a children's hospital. Now she's in medical school. And I thought, all of a sudden, an idea came to me. About 2 years ago, I decided I needed to do something about my physical health. So I found a video that showed me a very systematic way to start on that journey. I couldn't do 10 push-ups. This is embarrassing. Okay, it's embarrassing. I couldn't do 10 push-ups, but I followed that process. As a matter of fact, I was a little too aggressive with it, okay? But now, fast forward 2 years, I can probably pop out 50. And for a person with my maturity in years, that's pretty impressive. I can do 7 pull-ups. Again, that's impressive. But I don't have any health conditions. And I don't want to be a super athlete. But if I had health conditions, where would I go? I'd go to a specialist.
Right.
If I wanted to be a super athlete, where would I go? I would go to a specialist. Okay. And I thought, in my mind, that's kind of what Addie's doing. She's helping people that need intensive help or want to reach just unbelievable heights, unbelievable turnaround, scaling.
That's right.
The EOS might not work as powerfully as what Addie's doing for those 2 specific instances.
Well, I think it does work. I mean, and I appreciate the
does.
analogy. I think it's a great analogy. I think it does work. It's just that, we help companies where they don't have the time or don't have the know-how.
Yes. Yes.
And, and sometimes you do need to go a little bit deeper in the documentation, especially if they're technical.
Yes.
Want to train. It depends what you want to do with it. But I agree with you that, starting, absolutely. Then you can, like, for instance, we took the 4-step process of followed by all. We actually divided into 8 because we go over specifics on how to, the accountability, for instance. I mean, the process review. We have a checklist for the process review. Now, you can just review other processes or you can use the checklist because you want to go deeper or do more. But we definitely, I think it just aligns. It just takes it a little bit farther.
Absolutely.
The same thing is like, you as with your financial background, you can go to a company and say, do a high level budget. So it's better than nothing. At least you know where the money is going to come from. But if you want to do real financial projections, etc., you will go to a trusted advisor that can do that. And I think that is the difference in terms of where we support it, right? I mean, it is,
Yes.
we are trusted advisor there to support what you're doing, Greg, with the
Absolutely.
company. So that particular component will happen correctly.
Yes, Addie, I think you've nailed it there. And when I think about the different components, one of the components is the people component.
Mhm.
Wigman created just some powerful, simple tools that work and they work well. But there are also some other tools out there that help, that can go in deeper, that have developed over time. Okay. But you can get started with those tools without adding a lot of complexity because Wigman obsessed on simplicity. Another area on the model is the measurables, the scorecard. It used to be in the good old days, you'd have a hard time coming up with 5 to 15 measurables. But with the software out there today, what do you think the problem is?
It's too many measurables, and are they successful, and do you use it?
Yeah,
The question that I like to ask clients when I see all these measurables is, how do you manage by the results? So you read the result of the measurable, what do you do with it? If they go, him and ham, and they don't know, well, maybe we didn't even have to measure it. You want to measure in order to do something, not just measure. I can measure different things. I can measure my blood pressure every day. I don't have a blood pressure problem. What am I going to do with the results? Nothing.
Nothing. Stop doing it. Quit. Put your time in more productive areas. So I
Exactly.
get asked questions about the scorecard, and so how do we use this? And so I try and give them a picture because I kind of think in pictures. And I said, have you ever driven down the interstate at night and got a little sleepy as you were going on a long drive and you drift a little over to the right? What happens? You hit a rumble strip. The cars go boom, 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 because you've gotten to the edge of safety. There's a area in there, okay, that you can operate within. Now, if you hit that rumble strip, you've got a choice. What are your two choices? You can
Wake
respond
up and come back to
and
center.
correct. Exactly. Or you can ignore it and end up in the ditch or worse. That's
Right.
the same thing that we guide our clients with. You've got to use those measurables. They've got to give you a pulse on the business. There's got to be something that helps you respond. You don't want to react. You want to respond before it gets to a reactionary phase. And that's what you would teach them. And that's, the same thing out of EOS. It's just a powerful, simple tool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Greg, who are your favorite businesses to work with?
I come from some pretty humble beginnings, and many of us have, so there's nothing unusual about that. But I like working with blue collar. I like working with construction companies. I don't have bad language, but I don't have to worry about my language in my sessions with construction companies. I don't have to watch my language in companies that are manufacturing, okay? And again, I don't have bad language. My kids have never heard me say a word. And my wife, I think in our 42 years, has heard me say bad words as my kids would, as we call them with the kids, twice in our years.
I don't think when they will allow you, will tolerate you talking like with us.
I can relax with them. Okay. Now I've had software companies, SaaS, they're great. I've done financial services, a whole host of them, but I also like driving by a job site and going, I'm working with them. That's one of my clients. Or you see that company right there? I help them manufacture X, Y, or Z. And, just kind of a tactile person. I want to put my hands on things, or at least point and say, I'm part of that team.
Yeah. That is fantastic. And we love working with the trades and construction as well.
They need us. They need us.
Absolutely.
They're neglected. They're overlooked.
I agree. Greg, if our listeners want to get a hold of you and want to know more about you and reach out to have a conversation, how can they do that?
Well, they can call me on my cell number. So my cell number is 817-808-8556. So I'm going to warn you, never play telephone poker with me because I will beat you. 817-808-8556. Or they can reach me at greg.benson@eosworldwide.com. greg.benson@eosworldwide.com.
Fantastic. We'll include that in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And Greg, it's been a pleasure having you on this podcast. What a great conversation. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Addie.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.